welcome back to our continuing coverage of Nigeria 2015's general elections. Well, yes, indeed, at the moment, it's the presidential and National Assembly elections. But don't forget that on the 11th of April, we will have the governorship and state assemblies elections. So this is just the first half of the entire equation, if we could describe it as such. And then we'll also be going to the National Coalition Center by 8 o'clock to get the final lap for the announcement of the results for the presidential elections. Well, already congratulatory messages going through from the president to General Muhammadu Buhari about it, and lots of reactions also trailing in. And we will get you more as we progress here today. So we'll still have Mr. John Oloyede on our extreme left, a legal practitioner, Julia Benitier of the Institute of National Transformation, and Professor Oyelowo, former Dean, Faculty of Law, University of Lagos, and Channels TV's election consultant. Well, let's take a look at political parties again. The question of internal democracy. Well, we're talking about what this election does or will do to godfatherism. Let's start with Prof.
Yeah, basically when you start your democratization or political liberalization, you have all kinds of people coming together to form political parties, because political parties are necessary mechanisms for democratic governance. You need people to come together, people who vote for them. So at initial stage, you have all kinds of interesting political parties coming together. You have godfatherism, which we call, personality political parties. But as your political process gets into maturity, then you find different species of political parties coming out. Then you start having what you can call programmatic political parties. And then you can start to judge them by their performance at, in intermittent period when you vote them in. So Nigeria, we are moving away. So you can see that the issue of godfatherism did not play out as much as it played in 1999, for instance. So we are going through the process. And if anybody, sometimes you don't notice when you are growing, until somebody tells you that you have grown taller. We are actually growing. We are just not noticing it because we are the ones undergoing the process of growth. So the political parties going forward, internal democracy and the likes of them, we will have to address it.
All right, Prof, we'll come back to this. Let me get to Raufu Mustapha. He's a professor of African politics, University of Oxford, because Mr. Lady did talk about what Africans are used to and all of those. Good evening and thank you for joining us today. Well, yes, focusing on this presidential elections and the way it has gone so far, what have you seen that perhaps kind of sticks out or you didn't see coming in terms of your assessment for these elections?
Sorry, can I get your question again?
Give us your impression about this election so far.
I see it's been quite an interesting election, particularly today. We started off on a rather shaky note with the display at the INEC collation room. But then we ended up with the graceful performance of Mr. President in conceding defeat. I think in many ways this election will set many standards in this country, and we just have to build on it to improve the system.
In terms of the previous commentary that may have made the rounds about what happens in Africa about democracy, especially when an incumbent loses an election, what were the kinds of expectations that went, and did this one perhaps upset all those previous stereotypes?
I think statistically there's the evidence that incumbents in Africa have, since the era of democratization, they've learned to try to avoid defeat and to use democracy as another instrument to perpetuate themselves in power. We've seen the increasing rise of African presidents asking for third term, changing of their constitution to run for third term. And we've also seen the increasing tendency of elections to be subverted in one way or the other. But by and large, I think Nigeria has shown today that this trend is not irreversible. And clearly our own election does go contrary to some of those trends.
Well, in terms of how maybe Nigerians generally from all the divides were going to react to the results of these elections, what are your thoughts about it?
The pictures I've seen so far from various parts of the country, even from abroad, suggest that Nigerians are very happy. In the place where I was at the Civil Society Situation Room in Abuja, everybody stood up and started singing the national anthem and patting each other on the back, because we all felt that our country has won today. It's not about any winner or any loser, it's about our country doing the right thing. And I think that's something that we should enjoy today, and tomorrow we roll up our sleeves for the work that lies ahead.
Now, what message is this elections in Nigeria today, the conclusion of it happening just in the process at the moment, what kind of information does it passes on to other African governments?
Yeah, it shows that we can live up to our promise. This country has phenomenal resources and abilities. And just to the sheer example of holding an election like this, minimum violence, fairly steady organization of it, never mind the hiccups, and producing a result that the vast majority are willing to accept, I think it's a good thing. And to have our president also leading by example to recognize the voice of the people, I think it's a large message out there to other African heads of state to learn to respect the wishes of their people.
Interesting too that we've had a story, it seems to be the lead story at the moment, that the president, the current president of course, President Goodluck Jonathan of Nigeria, has made a phone call to General Muhammadu Buhari congratulating him on this he puts it as a successful process so far. What are your thoughts? Do you see this also spilling over to other African countries?
Yeah, of course, I do hope that other African leaders learn from this. Unfortunately, in Africa, we don't really have much of a tradition of this kind of conceding at elections. So we've set an example here we hope other people will learn from. And in terms of our looking to the future, it's incumbent on President-elect Buhari to embrace everybody in the same spirit and try to pull the whole country along with him.
What do you expect of the next one, the April 11 date?
Well, I think, I hope the logistical problems will be looked at, even though the time is short. The distribution of materials, the working of the card readers, so that our people can turn up in larger numbers. And we also hope the counting collation will go well, and all the cases of protest you see in various places about tampering will be minimized, if not totally eliminated, and that we have a very good election. And I hope that the Nigerian people recognize that we need a multiplicity of political points. We don't need a single party in government. We need multiple centers of power so that they can check each other and they can help each other to perform well. And the electing of state level local government officials makes that possible.
All right, Prof. Mustapha, Professor of African Politics, University of Oxford. Thank you for speaking with us today on the program.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, let's get this final lap before we wrap up. I mean, still speaking in that trend of letting the will of the people count, because when they come out for these elections, that's the same thing they want to see. They want unfettered access and unfettered, when they vote, that's the way it should go. When any politician, yes, much as some say, they still might just try to overreach themselves and see, look, can we still throw our weight around? Perhaps they should perish the thought now, you think?
I feel they should perish the thought. But however, we need to recognize that I'm trying not to pull us down, but to let us recognize as Nigerians that